So I recently got a request to make an A Song of Ice and Fire hot takes video, and I'm not sure how hot some of these takes are, but I have a lot of them, so this might be a multi-video part series. For today's video, I have 13 different hot takes, and let me know in the comment section down below how many of these you agree with, and if you've now unsubscribed from my page because of some of the things that I'm about to say. Starting off with my first hot take. A Dance with Dragons is my favorite book. A lot of people don't like Dance. A lot of people think it's one of the weaker books in the A Song of Ice and Fire series. And I agree. Dance is a hot mess. There are so many chapters that are definite misfires. The pacing is all over the place. I have a lot of problems with the way the book is structured. But with all that being said, the highs of this book are just so incredibly high. It contains some of my favorite character moments in the entire series. Theon's story in A Dance with Dragons is fantastic. Jon's story in A Dance with Dragons is fantastic. Daenerys, yes, Daenerys has an amazing arc in A Dance with Dragons as well. Just so many peaks, so many interesting characters. Phenomenal book overall. Very flawed, but my personal favorite book. Melisandre's chapter is just absolutely phenomenal. But then you have characters like Quentyn. But then you have Barristan. It's a very hot and cold book. Definitely not the best in terms of overall writing quality, but my personal favorite book. Coming up next, Tyrion Lannister has way too many chapters. George R. R. Martin has said in the past that Tyrion is his favorite character to write, and boy, you can tell. Tyrion's chapters, he has the most chapters in the entire series, easily, actually, and he also has some of the longest chapters, and I think many of his chapters can either be condensed or two chapters can be combined into one. But George spends so much time in Tyrion's head, and his chapters are so bloated by the amount of talking that he does, and how much thinking that he does, and the way in which he almost talks and thinks in circles at times. And yes, this is enjoyable and adds to his character in many aspects, but especially in Dance, there are so many Tyrion chapters that just drag on, and he talks, and it is just too much. There are way too many Tyrion chapters. There could be easily 5 to 7 less, and the character would either be the exact same or actually be better for the less chapter count. Moving on, the characters being children is necessary. Now, essentially all of the characters are aged up for the Game of Thrones TV show, and a lot of people really like this change. A lot of people criticize George R. R. Martin for having children go through the things that they do in this world, but them being so young is crucial to one of the key aspects of the story. A massive part of A Song of Ice and Fire is the idea of children not getting to properly grow up and them losing their innocence way too early. There are a ton of really tragic Daenerys lines where she says, "Oh, that's something that I would have loved to do when I was a child, but I'm not a child anymore," and she's 14 years old. Jon is thrust into a world too early. Robb is thrust into a world too early. Bran, Rickon, all of these characters are way too young to be going through what they're going through, and that's the point. This cold, hard, cruel world is corrupting their childhoods, and it's causing them to have to endure things that children should just not have to endure. And aging up the characters affects the way people view the characters. I feel it allows more agency to be given to the characters when there normally should be less, and I really do feel them being so young is incredibly crucial, incredibly necessary, and makes a story better overall. Coming up next, Catelyn Stark isn't stupid. Yes, she makes bad decisions, but she also makes a lot of great decisions, and she gives great counsel to Robb at times. She tells him right before the Red Wedding, books before actually, not to trust the phrase, not to make stupid decisions. She tells him that Grey Wind not liking what is going on is a foul omen, that he should trust the direwolf's instincts. She tells him to keep Grey Wind near him, and Robb doesn't listen. She gives Stannis and Renly good counsel, breaks it down for them that if they fight each other, they are both screwed and neither one of them is going to sit on the Iron Throne. But no one listens to her. Yes, the situation with Tyrion is quite dumb. Yes, releasing Jaime is not the brightest thing that she could have done in that moment, but this is a mother who is in mourning. This is a parent and a partner who has lost her husband, who has lost multiple children. She's doing her best given the situation, and me personally, I would have been falling apart and tearing apart at the seams if I was going through what she was going through during the main series. She still tries her best, she still gives good counsel, and overall she is a very, very intelligent person, and not enough people give her that credit. Next up, I'm not going to get too much into this one because I don't want to spoil for people who haven't read it and are waiting for the TV show, but The Sworn Sword, which is novella 2 of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, is my favorite novella. I find it to be incredibly thematically rich. Sir Duncan the Tall really comes into his own as a character in this book. I just absolutely adore his relationship with Rohan, and this is a part 2 hot take. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms as a whole it goes back and forth between being my second or third favorite book in general. It's A Dance with Dragons, A Storm of Swords, and A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. And I go back and forth between Storm and A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. I think it's third, but if you ask me at a certain point in time, I might say it is second. I think these novellas are phenomenal. I think they are some of George R. R. Martin's best work, and I am incredibly excited to cover them in depth and cover the TV show in depth when it releases in about a month and a half. Up next, Fire and Blood is a bit of a snooze fest. I don't know how hot of a take this is. I know a lot of people really love Fire and Blood, really love hearing about the Targaryen history. Me personally, I found this book boring as shit. Don't get me wrong, it's not boring the whole time. There are a lot of really great moments in Fire and Blood. There are some really interesting parts with Maegor and with Aegon and with Jaehaerys and with some of the other Targaryens who fly away and come back with the bloodworms, and a lot of interesting stuff with the Doom of Valyria, and the Dance of the Dragons is cool. But all in all, it's probably because it's a history textbook, fake history. I just didn't love it compared to the other A Song of Ice and Fire books. And that's to be expected. It's not like the other books, but I was expecting to like it more than I did, and I found myself really having to push through during parts of the story, which I wasn't expecting, because for every other A Song of Ice and Fire related book, I just fly through them. I finished Dance in like 3 weeks. It was so easy and so fun to read. And Fire and Blood is not that. I don't think this book is very fun, and it's the only book that I'm like, oof, do I really want to reread this? Next up is actually a take that I gave in a video last week, and I know it's hot because people were very, very pissed with me. And that is, I don't think Rhaegar Targaryen was evil. I think he was incredibly complicated. I think he is incredibly tragic, but I don't think he's this evil rapist that people make him out to be. I think the whole situation is far more complicated than people let on. I think he was trying to do the right thing and just made a lot of mistakes along the way. I think he was doomed with great purpose from a young age, and the darkness of Summerhall just carried over through his entire life and just really fucked him up. And I think he's incredibly tragic and incredibly interesting. But yeah, I don't think Rhaegar is evil, and Rhaegar Targaryen in general is a character that if you mention in this fandom, the pitchforks come out. So there's that. Ooh. These next two are personal favorites of mine that I'll be going into in depth on that very long Jon Snow video that I keep talking about making. Donal Noye is the most important male figure Jon has ever had. I know. Obviously, Ned is important. Ned raised him. Yes. Obviously, Benjen is incredibly important. But in A Dance with Dragons, which is Jon Snow's best book in my opinion, and where we learn the most about him, the man that he keeps thinking back to, the man whose chambers that he is sleeping in, the man whose shoes that he is trying to fill, the person he thinks about the most isn't Ned. it isn't Benjen, it's Donal Noy. And this is a character that isn't even in the TV show, but the way in which Donal Noy breaks down to Jon the reality of the world, the cold, harsh truth, the way he reads Jon up and down and explains to him the kind of man that he needs to be, yeah, I think Donal Noy is the most important male figurehead in Jon Snow's life, at least in the later books. And coming up next, we have another Jon Snow hot take. I think Jon is more wildling than Stark. Jon feels the most at home, he feels the most natural, the most at peace when he is beyond the wall with the wildlings. He develops this very real relationship with Ygritte, this very real relationship with Tormund, and this very real relationship with Mance. He speaks about how he feels the most at home when he's just in the woods beyond the wall with Ghost, hunting. He feels the most himself in the cave with Ygritte. He feels the most free, the most pure. And I think, and this is actually a part 3 hot take, his arc will end with him going beyond what is ever left of the wall and kind of just joining the wildlings and possibly trying to find the cave that him and Ygritte stayed in all those years ago. Next up, I have that Arys Oakheart is actually an incredibly interesting character. Arys Oakheart is a character that we get one POV from in A Feast for Crows, and then he dies. And a lot of people really don't like this character or his POV, they find it to be filler, and he's just been at the receiving end of many jokes related to his character and calling him pointless and filler, and I kind of see where people are coming from, but I really do like the character. Arys Oakheart is a microcosm of what knighthood means in Westeros, how it gets soiled, how it can corrupt people, how the ideas of man and just mankind in general corrupts knighthood, and I just find him to be both incredibly interesting and incredibly tragic. Next up, I have Doran Martell isn't smart. A lot of people think Doran is the strategic genius because he's sending Quentyn to Meereen to get with Daenerys and get a dragon to take vengeance on the Seven Kingdoms, or on King's Landing, I should say. And no, he's not. Tyrion tells young Griff early on in A Dance with Dragons that thinking you can just walk into Daenerys' place and marry her, take one of the dragons, is naive. Daenerys has been through hell and back. She has sacrificed her life before. She has lost loved ones. She has been through so much shit. She's been raped. Daenerys has gone through it all. She is not some naive little girl who you can just walk into and be, oh, miss, can I have your hand in marriage? And by the way, give me your powerful nukes so I can go do with what I want with them. No, that is not Daenerys. And Doran Martell is a moron for thinking that this is how it would work. I don't know why more people don't give him shit for this. Doran makes the same mistake that every other man in Westeros makes, and that's underestimating the character of Daenerys Targaryen. And you're really going to tell me that this strategic genius, his entire plan, relies on getting something that he doesn't understand from someone he doesn't know half a world away? Yeah, Doran Martell is not smart. And finally, the last hot take of today's video, we are simply not entitled to the Winds of Winter. And for anyone who goes, oh, we made a financial investment, we paid for the books, they're like $30. Relax. But with all that being said, if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comment section down below if you'd like me to do more of these. I think they're pretty fun, and I have some spicier takes that I could definitely do multiple parts with. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Peace.